Hello all, thanks for joining me right here at the lecture center. Or should I say on the lecture center or in the lecture center, it doesn't matter. You're listening and I'm so grateful for that. Whew, what an evening, what a day. So much happening in the world, so much to talk about. And this podcast isn't going to be any different from the others. I am going in. People, this podcast is going to cover a lot of controversy, and I don't shy away from that anymore. I used to, but what people see as controversial really is something that needs to be discussed. And this is the podcast where we do it. We don't just philosophize on life, although I think everything I say is philosophy practically. I mean, I'm always asking why. So we don't just do that. We have sound discussions. I like to say intellectually sound discussions. And this one is going to be about criminality and the plan to destroy the United States. Friends, this is nothing new. But what amazes me is that so many people know nothing about this plot. I have had discussions with friends about the plot to destroy the United States, and they just can't believe what I'm saying. No, it can't be like that. They don't want that. That can't be it. Friends, let's delve into this because I'm telling you, this may really cause a stir within your soul, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm really here to get everybody to think. That's what philosophizing is all about. It's about getting you to think critically, because that is what is missing in today's society. People take whatever they hear. It's like they just run with it. Whatever the media says, they run with it. It's gospel. They fail to think. They fail to do their own research. They fail to really investigate and look into things. Whatever the media says, it's the truth. And so that's why I'm talking. So that we can present real truth. And real truth, let me explain that. Real truth rests on a foundation that cannot be altered, a foundation that cannot be changed. Truth is immutable. Truth is infallible. Truth is truth. So yes, there is certainly evidence that can't be denied. And that evidence is about the current breakdown of societal order. Now, if you're in denial, it's because you just don't want to deal with it. We see this societal disorder in the major cities of the United States, such as Portland, LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Louisiana, and New York. And I realize that urban decay is a sliver of the problem. I say this because we have a mental health crisis that is pervading the country. There are major issues in rural areas and even in the middle of the country. So this is not just about the urban cities. This is all over. Friends, I really want to talk about criminality. I want to talk about where it comes from and how we can combat it. I think that criminality has become more of an issue that people feel can be addressed not morally, but politically. And I simply don't agree with that. And that's the one reason why I'm doing the podcast. I want to argue quite emphatically, I might add, that the dilemma of mankind is not a political one. It has never been, nor will it ever be. Our dilemma is a moral dilemma. And this is something that we need to acknowledge because I really can't see how we can deny it. Friends, criminality is not just an urban problem, and I said that. It's not just a West Virginia problem. It's not just a black people problem or a trailer park white trash problem. It is a symptom of a larger issue that has taken root in the minds and hearts of the masses. And criminality comes from the denunciation of moral law. Yes, there is moral law, whether we want to accept it or reject it or whatever we want to do with it. It's absolute. Not only have we become a wayward people, we've decided that we just won't adhere to universal law, which is the moral law. And this is the law that keeps us alive and allows for prosperity. For lack of knowledge, my people perish. That's a scripture, friends. Many people don't know about universality. Many people don't know about universal law. We know that we have a serious problem. And criminality can't be eradicated. If you think that that can happen, then you're looking for a utopia. Nature does not support utopian societies. Nature is always going to be about balance and the balance of polarity. So we're not talking about eradicating criminality. What we're really talking about is identifying the cause of criminality and the remedy or the solution to the problem of criminality. Because, friends, people cannot live in peace. They cannot thrive. They cannot prosper. They don't feel safe. Criminality is a problem. And we see that when we look at areas of the world, neighborhoods, pockets, even in the Western world, where criminality is rampant. We see what it does to the people. It erodes hope and makes the law-abiding or the morally upright prisoners in their own neighborhoods and in their own town, in their own cities. This is something that we cannot ignore and we can't accept. So the essential questions that I will pose here are: number one, what is criminality? Number two, what are the causes of criminality? And number three, how can we mitigate the problem? So I think we can all agree as to what constitutes criminal behavior. Maybe we can agree. But criminal behavior does not necessarily define what it means to act as a criminal. One of the major issues that we're facing is that we can't seem to agree as a society on what is against the law and what is not. We have people who believe that criminal acts or criminal behavior is necessary when there is victimization at play. That's what I was talking about. That's why we can't agree. And I'm going to give some examples here, and I want you to think critically. That's why I'm throwing out these examples. For example, self-defense. If a woman is attacked and she uses violence, kicking, punching, whatever it is she's doing, gouging out the eyeballs, to subdue her attacker, would that be justified? Is it justified? Because had the woman not done this, she probably would have been beaten, raped, or even killed. So in this case, the act would not be deemed as a criminal act because the woman was defending herself. Yes, no, maybe so. Now that, of course, is a more practical example, but what if the claim was presented that mobs of young black boys and girls run into boutiques and department stores, smashing out windows and grabbing whatever merchandise they can get their hands on without paying a cent for anything? How about that? Is that a criminal act? If you said yes, think about why you said it. If you said no, think about why you said no. And if you said yes and no, I'm very interested in hearing your argument. Let me present another case. A homeless person sets up a tent along a popular thoroughfare in town, and the tent is situated in front of a luxury retailer with high-end customers who have expressed concerns about the various drug paraphernalia and filthy garments scattered about the area. The management of the establishment, as a response to the customers, approaches the homeless person and kindly asks that the person vacate the area. The homeless person refuses and the police are called. As the police arrive, they are confronted with the belligerent homeless person who refuses to leave the premise. Subsequently, because of resisting arrest, the homeless person is taken into custody. Shortly thereafter, a group of protesters stands directly at the entrance of the luxury store, carrying signs that say the rights of the homeless person were violated. This person, they assert, should be allowed to set up a tent on public property if need be. After all, the person was unhoused and non-violent. The act of calling the police was inhumane and violated the rights of the unhoused person. Tell me what you think is a criminal act. Think about it. Of course, you can't tell me, but think about it. What was the criminal act here? Or if maybe there was no criminal act at all, maybe you're thinking, I don't see what's criminal at all. Well, let me give you my take on it. Because of what the protesters believed was the reckless action of the retailer, they eventually called for the closure of the store. And friends, this is an actual real life scenario. I made it up, but it's common and it's real in the sense that this is what we're dealing with. Friends, we are facing a conflict. We as a people have lost our moral foundation, our moral compass. We no longer know what constitutes right and wrong. And I want to start with the first example because I think that it was established from the beginning that it's wrong to take something that doesn't belong to us. That's been wrong from day one. I can't think of one time in history that's ever been considered right. Or to take something from an establishment that wasn't paid for. It's the same thing. It's stealing. The law is clear about stealing. But the thing about the lawless is that they don't care. If it's something that they want, they take it even if it's not theirs. Then they don't have the ability to not do it. Let me explain that. What I mean is that they, the lawless, are a slave to their desires. So if the desire rises up in their soul to steal, to kill, to destroy, they obey that because they don't have any control over it. Their desires hold them hostage, and they are slaves. They have to do what the desire tells them to do. This, of course, some people would say, well, wait a minute, what about free will? Those of us who believe in free will. Well, that's what we're talking about here. It's the will that's enslaved. I can't go into that right now. I could talk about that, but I won't. There's a lot more. I'll go off on a tangent and then I won't be able to come back. You see, the issue is that a man who lives according to virtue does not possess the desire to harm his fellow men in any way. And he has no desire to kill, steal, or destroy. It's because of the development of virtue. That is what subdues the desire and in fact prevents this desire from enslaving the soul and the will of man. And so there is a healing that has to take place in man, but we're getting to that. So the corporeal desires or vices of mankind are really inherent in his nature. That's natural. And the only way to overcome vice is not through some kind of therapy or community counsel, but by obeying the natural desires that actually bind men to their vices. I'm saying that healing comes from being hurt. We can't circumvent or refuse to deal with the cards that life has dealt. All of us at some point in our evolutionary cycle have struggled with vices. How do you think that we come to develop virtue? Yes, living for vices is a painful experience. And it's also painful for the victims of those who commit these criminal acts against them. Living for vices is the definition of suffering. But if one is lawless and committing acts of violence towards his fellows, he should suffer the consequences, I would think. He should not be coddled and spared from the pain, suffering, and torment that life gives him. So he should go to jail. He should be ostracized. He should be banished. Friends, let me get into all of this, because this is the truth of the matter. You all know who I am by now. Let's get raw. I deliberately mentioned that the kids committing this smash and grab were black. I did it because the rules of the law changed for black kids as opposed to others. And the others would be white. It's been said by many social justice warriors that there are simply too many black people in jail. And we know this is true because the data's out there. We can't deny that. So the solution to the problem is not to address the source of the rampant criminality that plagues the black and brown communities, but to simply reform the laws, which, by the way, have made it non-criminal to steal. So stealing is tolerated in the name of social justice, or shall I say, retribution, for societal wrongdoing that has been perpetrated against people of color for centuries. This is their mindset. The point here is that people of color are seen as victims of a criminal system, and this system is the country, the whole entire country. They have said that the whole entire country has not provided any redress that has properly dealt with the ongoing problem of systemic racism. So, their way of dealing with the excessive jailing of black people is to simply ignore their criminality, because in their lawless minds, white people, especially affluent white people, deserve to be robbed. After all, they are the original thieves. They have taken everything from blacks, indigenous, and people of color from all over the world. They are the evil colonizers. Therefore, any action pointed in the direction of these horrible, evil, blue-eyed devils are justified actions. And we're not done here, friends. Let's go back to that homeless person, the one who refused to move his tent and was arrested for being belligerent. Yeah. The advocates protested his arrest. And by the way, actually, I never said it was a he or a she, but we're just going to say his arrest. What we are asking ourselves here is, what is the problem? Was there an act of criminality in this case? And if so, on whose part? I want to pose this question. Why is it acceptable for a homeless person to live on the street in a tent? And also, why is it acceptable for a drug-addicted homeless person, who I said was leaving the paraphernalia in the eye shot of the public, to live in a tent in front of a business? And I have another question. Why is it that the homeless person has all of his rights, but the business owner and the customers have no rights? Friends, this is where we really need to think critically, because there seems to be this prevailing idea that those in society who are perceived to be the have-nots or the downtrodden are deserving of some kind of pass. You see, they are deemed right, and society's actions are always in the wrong. But there's a problem here, because wrongs cannot be corrected in this manner. The fact is this: men are flawed creatures. And we are not, because we are flawed, we're not in a position to judge the way universal law, God, nature, judges. Not all men are morally upright. And if a man is not mature to live by his own conviction and by the highest principle, which is love, he will never be able to properly morally judge his fellow men, because he's not living in love. The moralists, who I've spoken so much about the moralists lately, those who think they are morally superior, have enacted these terrible policies which promote lawlessness and criminality. And they're in no position to say what's right and wrong, because the fact is this. Here's another fact. They're vengeful, and they're also hateful. And all they are doing is punishing the law-abiding. And that's what they want to do. That's what they're out here to do, is punish. But what it really is, friends, it is punishment, but it's also retribution. They destroy affluent businesses. They demand that Ivy League schools and top-tier private schools let in people of color regardless of their merit. They have lowered the standards for qualifying to be a teacher by doing away with literacy and math tests. All of this, DEI, bail reform, downgrading of laws, defunding police, the implementation of community jails, and the restorative justice model, all of this, an attempt to all out lower the standards, is really the attempt to get something for nothing. This is all about people who have not done the work to receive the better things in life. Because the idea is this: white people were given everything. They didn't have to assimilate, become acculturated, or work hard. But this is a lie. This is a lie, friends. Because the ancestors of the white people who are in America were foreigners who came from nothing. Many struggled to find principles and a sense of moral uprightness themselves. They had to learn the ways of the country, and they wanted to be a part of the country to the extent that many changed their names. They learned English, they stopped speaking their native tongue, and they accepted the culture wholeheartedly. These people remember where they came from. They know their history and they know what it means to be poor. They weren't always rich. They weren't always affluent. Some of them still aren't rich. Some of the most affluent people in the United States were self-made. Most were self-made and came from nothing. So this lie that says they were given everything because they were so privileged and they had a tremendous amount of it is just that. I don't say that some people slip through the cracks, because that's always going to be the case. We're not perfect, but we know, because of the evidence that we see today, many people worked, and they worked damn hard. If they had not worked, we wouldn't have a country. How do they think we have a country? How do they think we have an organized government and we have systems? We have a judicial system, electoral system. How do they think? Where do they think all of this came from? It comes from people who sit down and organize and think and write and put things together. It comes from a mind. They don't acknowledge the mind of man. They don't acknowledge creativity. They don't acknowledge any of it. We would not have a country if it weren't for people who worked. And yes, let's give them the credit that is due. They were white. But they don't like to hear that because of the simple fact that it makes them feel inferior. Well, that's on them. Because like I said before, life is all about self-improvement. And if you don't like who you are, then improve yourself. Better yourself. But don't blame other people because you feel inferior. Black people weren't the only people that physically built the country. They're talking about slaves built the White House. Okay, touche. But there were many other things that it took besides manual labor to build the country. And don't pat yourself on the back because you think you did something so great. Yes, 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 yes. But don't negate the sacrifices of the Chinese, Italians, Irish, and later the Jews. Let's not do it. There is, on the part of the black social justice warriors, to deny history in order to justify the victimhood and downtrodden state of some blacks, particularly those still in the ghetto. But that can't take hold unless there are people who actually partake in this lie, which is really a denial of the truth. And I can't do it. I won't do it because I see it for what it is. It's evil. It's diabolical. It is these so-called social justice warriors who are really the self-righteous. I call them the moralists. They think they have the God-given right to point the finger at me, you, and everybody else and tell us that we're evil. They don't want equity. They want power. These are angry and jealous people who could care less about what white liberals or anyone, even people of color, other people of color, that's right, do for them. And I can say this because I know how they think. And I also know that they hide behind their college degrees, their positions in the media, their political offices, and even the pulpit. Friends, they are ironically a part of the intelligentsia and the societal elite. They've been accepted into prestigious circles, and every moment of every day they are given endowments and research grants. They've been allowed to teach in the Ivy League and hold political office to spread this damn lie, which we call their ideology. And they vehemently believe in systemic racism. They keep just pumping that lie out. They spew this hypocrisy to only the foolish masses who are puppets. Friends, these people are making a ridiculous amount of money off of the masses because it's their hustle. They're hustlers. When what they do it well. But I don't think it's just about the money. There is indeed something more sinister at play here. And it's the implementation of their own agenda. And we're getting into that right now. And that agenda is to ultimately destroy the country in its entirety. Friends, they're using the criminally insane to do it. That's why they refuse to crack down on the drug-addicted, homeless, and mentally ill who are plaguing the New York, Chicago, Atlanta, LA, and my God, Portland streets. I've had people say to me when I revealed this to them, why would they want to destroy their own cities and ultimately the country? Why? And I say because they don't like the hierarchical structure. They don't like the economic system, which is capitalism. They don't like the systems that we have because they're not at the top of those systems. They want to be the rich. They want to be the affluent. They want to be the powerful. They want to overthrow the white race. This is the enemy within. And this is the enemy that's hiding behind this guise of moral uprightness. They're using the so-called black plight, the people of color plight, the indigenous people's plight, and the criminal element in society to do their bidding. I've discussed some of their plans, and they're not hiding their plans. Their plans are in plain view. They've written about them in books. They've done These plans are on the internet, friends. And the politicians are talking about their plans for their new world order, so to speak. Friends, let me tell you, they feed the criminal element of our society by encouraging one of the causes of criminality, which is idleness. When we look at the data, most criminals don't work. Many are drug addicted, porn addicted, thieves, sexual deviants, and so forth. They don't pay taxes, and they don't do anything to contribute to the society at large. We know for a fact that liberal policies support idleness by not encouraging work, but instead petitioning the state government for the allocation of funds that subsidize housing, SNAP, and Medicaid. All of these programs do not incentivize work. People are not on these programs temporarily. They're on them for generations. And I've said that I'm not against these programs. The problem that I have is that they never get free of them. They don't become self-sufficient. And when people do not work, they have no real purpose in life. There's nothing to strive for, and there's no need to improve or better themselves. You see, work isn't just about paying bills. It's about finding meaning and a sense of self-worth and understanding that what you do has meaning and that people need you. We are all needed. And people who live a life of criminality, they have no self-worth. That's why they do what they do. So we know the plans of the moralists, the so-called self-righteous. We know what they want to do. The question is, what can we do about it? And I've often said that crime cannot be eradicated, but criminals can be kept at bay. They must understand that we will not tolerate what they're doing. I said before, a criminal is a slave to his vices, and that kind of slavery is unable to be controlled because the desire, the vice, controls them. That is why we must have a judicial system, and it must be supported by the people. We must have strict laws in place that lets criminals know that there are repercussions for their crimes. In other words, you're going to go to jail. There can't be any passes, and we can't be soft. We must be stern, and we must let them know we're not playing. We mean business. But this, of course, I would say is an obvious solution, and there's another one that I favor. And that is to cultivate a society that actually uplifts and dignifies people. And this has to start at the elementary level. Children must be given structure. They must be given chores again, and a sense of responsibility. We have to, all of us rather, have to get back to honoring the way we speak, the way we carry ourselves, our appearance, neatness, and cleanliness. Have to become part of the style again. Ironing clothes, something as simple as that. Women must be meek and demure. Men must be able to feel that they can be men once again. What I'm proposing is actually a restoration, a revitalization. I want to restore the dignity that we all once had at one time in human history. Now, there are many people with podcasts, and they do commentary. They've commented on a lot of things that I've said here. But the difference between me and them is that I present solutions, and I also really, really urge you to think critically. I just can't see the point in talking just to talk. I have a love for life and I have a love for my fellow men. So doing this podcast isn't just about hearing myself speak. And there's so much more I can say about this, and I can't do it now. I will do it at a later date. I want to sign off now. Please be sure to check out my YouTube videos on the Lecture Center YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe so that you can receive the latest videos and podcasts. Until next time.